Hi, Bill.
Welcome, Jeff. Welcome back. It's 999 show. Late as usual. I seem to be operating on what, Poets Time, I think it is. Poets Time, that's right. Because if I was my dad, I'd be calling it Indian time. But my dad was never really, concerned, especially when he was younger. He would, because his business partner had married a Macaw Indian, and when he went home for his lunch hour, which was just like a mile away, and then my dad would get so angry because his business partner, my uncle, would come back like 90 minutes, 2 hours later, and he's like, "Oh well, I guess that was 1 hour Indian time." And then, whatever, and and so, but really what it was is that my mother's father, they called it Fisher time because it seemed that, it was 1 hour. Fisher time was really 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. It's whenever. You come back whenever, And so anyway, we started at 4:15, 7:15 my time today.
Yes, that we did.
All right. Now what we got here going on here is we're going back in, we're talking about transhumanism, and we're going to try not to go too much into the doom and gloom, because there's been so much doom and gloom going on in the last week or so. And myself, I have a delivery coming in less than an hour, and Jeff here has a delivery coming, and so we're just going to be on for a short time today. And when you talk about transhuman evolution, and transhuman evolution is happening right now, and we don't really think about it, but as I was like on a walk today, I'm thinking it's happening right before our eyes. Evolution is happening, and the example I'm going to use, I have a couple of examples, but the examples that I'm going to use is our memory and how we have evolved through time, and what we have. Our memories, we used to have these massively good audio memories, or these memories are oral traditions that we transmitted information through time, through stories. And so if we look at, let's say, the Native Americans, the indigenous Americans, they had songs, these navigation songs, and so they could be in an ocean-going canoe and leaving out through the Puget Sound and going out into the ocean, and they could, through their beating out of a rhythm and chanting these songs, and they could navigate all the way down to Oregon or even beyond, because they had these navigational songs. They went in these, and so these were their memories, and they had their knowledge was stored in their head. And for centuries, for thousands of years, human beings operated this way. We had these memories, and that is how we had evolved ourselves with language.
It was their form of the digital footprint.
Yeah. And then we developed written language. And when we developed written language, we started to evolve ourselves. And unbeknownst, to whatever beliefs you have about evolution, it's true, because as we spin forward to 1440, when the printing press came into being, we started massively as a species of taking the stuff that was in our memory and putting it outside of the human body, storing our memory outside of the human body.
Mm-hmm.
and which also allowed us to explode the amount of knowledge that we had. And so instead of just being limited to what you could remember in your head, now you could explore, you could free up memory space in order to explore new ideas and new frontiers and new worlds in your imagination. And so now we come forward to today. We have our technology, our computer technology, and we are storing so much more information in there. And this is causing us to, like, literally have no memory, no ability to remember anything, you know. And it's like, how many people, I mean, because I remember, because I grew up before the cell phone. I think I maybe have had like a dozen phone numbers memorized. I have a few. Welcome, Lauren. Welcome. I have a few phone numbers memorized. I mean, what about you? How is your memory?
Pat, I mean, I'm about your age, and I was born in 75. I can maybe remember, I can't remember the exchanges, but I can remember like maybe 3 or 4 of them that were home lines, but I can't anymore. And you make an interesting point about how we shift from not having to be in a position where through stories and through metered, these were measurements. These were the first types of measurements, and through stories and through these things. And now we're at the other point where we don't have to do or know anything to speak of to navigate our way through this world. Or if you think about it, even if you don't know phone numbers and you can't remember those from years back, nowadays it just seems like, you know, with all the passwords and all the things we do, we can commit to memory through our phones. Those are the sort of things that could be weaponized against us, and the very technology that certain transhumanists want to use to advance our species in a way that would be in some ways positive or negative is a result of the developments that got us to this place, you know. So I think it's a double-edged sword. I don't know, just to keep it as we wanted to in the beginning, upbeat. I really like the idea of the CRISPR technology and all these things that we can do to offset age. You know, now when we talk about cures for cancer potentially, or there's one out there for pancreatic cancer they're looking at, when we look at things like that, do we feel that every type of advancement that goes against nature is transhumanist if it's coming from us? And is it playing God, or is to have like that anthropomorphic view of God the sign of moving forward past or getting past an evolutionary hurdle that we've created for ourselves, or will it make it worse? So it's an interesting proposition, Bill, because everything that you said led to something positively affecting the next, you know what I mean? Now,
yeah, it did. And I have had, though I've had church people telling me that I shouldn't have these beliefs, but I have had the belief that humans totally should play God.
Really?
And I have had that forever, almost forever. And every time I heard about it, from the first time I heard about it when I was in college, and I'm thinking, yeah, well, I think we should. I think that, to me, you know, it's like it kind of goes in there to, I guess maybe if you look at it from a point of view of the whole Eastern philosophical, spiritual view, that of the Brahma, and the creator, the creator, where God and creation are essentially kind of one and the same to a certain degree. And so, but it's not that you're not a god in a sense of being like Apollo or like Zeus or like the warrior gods of Yahweh or these old gods. You're not like that, or you're not like Superman. You're not but you're just a piece of the created order. And as a piece of the created order, that creative order is also you. That creative force is also you.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's those trees out there. It's the grass out there. It's your dog. It's your cat. It's everything. And then, but there are all these other things that are directing their evolution. Because I look at that turkey, that one lone turkey that wanders on my property. It comes. I see it in the morning now, and it comes in. It's almost to the point where it's like pecking on my bedroom window. It's like, hello, where's my bread? Where's my bread? Or it'll come up there when I'm looking at my light. I have a light where I turn on in the morning in order to get, so you try to, combat the seasonal whatever or disorder.
Seasonal affective disorder.
Yes. So I'm using a piece of technology to simulate sunlight in order to, in a sense of using technology.
It's brutal. It's really bad this year.
That's right. So you're just kind of doing that, and then while I'm doing that, that turkey's coming up and says, "Hello, you remember me?" And I'm thinking, so this turkey, either it's a outcast or it is smarter than all the other turkeys, because it's just hanging out. It's just not with its buddies. But I haven't seen it all day today. But there are other animals that are evolving right before our eyes, like the crow.
Mm-hmm.
Crow, which is they believe the crows are self-aware. And then if you look at,
I've heard that new report about their language is distinct, and even as they're viewed as crows are viewed as a good luck thing or a bad luck thing. Now they're starting, and you can talk about transhumanism too, I guess, if you start talking to other animals. They're developed, they have a distinct language, right? Bill, is that what they're finding out? That among them, when they're starting to use the artificial intelligence to decipher or decode, they're finding out what they're saying or something weird like that. So
well, that's what they think anyways. And so you look at that, and they're evolving, they're using tools, they are gaining self-awareness. Then you have the raccoon, which is domesticating itself.
That I didn't know either.
It's the city ones, and so which made me think that it meant that the dog must have domesticated itself. The wolf, decided that it was advantageous for it to be partnered with human beings. And so it wasn't that maybe humans did, but I think that it was that the wolf made the decision to become a dog.
Yeah, we touched on that a little bit once. I don't know how that would work though, from an like how domestication, which seems like such a mix of Pavlov and God knows what, how that they made the decision of their own free will to do it. I find that interesting, though.
Well, I think that's what's happening. I really do, because we're looking at, if we look, this is it's a created order, but we're looking at, okay, God did not make a static universe. It's more that God is more like that impersonal God, or it's that God that Thomas Jefferson believed, even though Thomas Jefferson was a tyrant and maybe wasn't a good, but nevertheless, none of us are really good people either, if you really want to look at it, because every one of us has some kind of a dark side, or something that we hide from others, or we have something that about us, we have our shadow selves. Because I was like thinking about this yesterday or the other day, when I was looking at the Jesus in the desert story, and the whole thing of the devil, and but the devil was Jesus's shadow self, tempting, because I'm taking Jesus, and I'm taking Jesus out of the realm of being a superhero, and Jesus going right into the realm of being an ordinary human being. And so if I take a look at things where I take Elaine Pagels, who I get some of these ideas from, because she was a biblical scholar in ancient texts, and she did a lot of studies within the realm of Gnostic gospels, and I've been attracted to Gnosticism forever anyway, and so because I'm an esoteric Christian, or that my Christianity is in the realm of the occult, the hidden elements, the Gnostic, but I'm not like a Gnostic Christian in a sense of all the little aeons and these different levels. I look at it more from that of a definitionally of that word gnosis, of knowledge, but it's not of a head knowledge, if it's a different knowing, a knowing kind of a thing. And so it's a different thing than that, more of a deeper sense. But where I'm going here is that's why I'm attracted to these kinds of things. But whereas Elaine Pagels talked about, because I did put this rabbit hole thing, and so we're going down a rabbit hole, which is fine, because these rabbit holes makes this show fun. And and so the rabbit hole here is that in Elaine Pagels' studies, she saw Jesus as having biological parents and spiritual parents. And saying that, so the biological parents was Joseph and Mary, or maybe the man was someone else. Who knows? We don't know. We don't know. It could have been someone else. And then, welcome, Lucy. And then at the adoption of spiritual parents came at the baptism, and where you had, and then a more Gnostic approach sees the Holy Spirit as the Holy Mother, the perpetual Virgin. And so you have God the Father and God the Mother. God the Father, God the Mother. The Mother is the perpetual Virgin.
So, if I'm understanding this correctly, this kind of flies in the face of what we're taught. It does, but it goes perfectly well if you look at maybe even Pauline theology, where Paul had women ministers, but it was the guy that came after Paul, writing in Paul's name, who was more Roman and was working on taking the female element out of the church. And so by the time we come into the 3rd century, the 320s, the female component of church ministry has just been squashed completely out. And that's where we have, but if you have like the Mary Magdalene, and you had the all these female apostles, the female disciples, and the female teachers, and Paul does talk about those kinds of things. And then you also would look at that. You would look at Paul as a Gnostic himself, and because Paul never met Jesus, Paul's experience with Jesus was completely through visions. And then of course maybe there was, because in the Pauline writings he never mentions the Gospels at all. So maybe if you were to do a more literalistic interpretation, you might think that he'd never read one of the Gospels. Yeah, it seems to me there's something almost bisexual about the idea that and then the divine feminine and the divine masculine, the way we feel that they're so distant, so far apart right now. And the fact that what you're explaining to me seems that there was more in the way. I wouldn't necessarily call it harmony, but like deists or people like that who are or open to other gods and other ideas of gods or consciousness or creator or whatever. It doesn't seem as segregational or as denominational, and maybe that's the type of thing we need to go back to in the beginning.
Well, you're right. We're looking at a more polytheistic world. And whereas where we're going now but see, one of the things I was thinking about, because this was when I went to the tribal food bank, because, you can stretch your dollars out a hell of a lot more if you go to food banks. And it makes economic sense.
Healthier too. Yeah, it can be.
It can be. It makes perfectly economic sense to go to food banks. But one of the guys had passed on, and his spirit was that like of a trickster, like the coyote, and the function of the trickster is to, you need to have a trickster god or a trickster spirit in your religion, because you need to have somebody that is there to tell you you're full of shit, and or to say that your beliefs are or whatever, to not to, because where we get in trouble in our
faith, it's testing your faith.
And so in the biblical narrative, in the book of Job, you have a trickster. There is a trickster god there, or a god that is a godlike creature. It's Satan. Satan was a trickster. Satan was not. And so this high idea of having these devils that are like, these devils that are out there, and the demons and the devils and all that. So I guess maybe with my academic understanding of religion and so forth, I don't believe there are demons, and I don't believe there is a all powerful. I don't really believe that at all. And so when it comes like to the thing of evil, it's like, well, why do human beings allow evil in the world? Because
Lucifer. Do you believe that Lucifer, in the story of Lucifer?
No, No, I don't think so. I don't think so. But I know people do, but that's maybe I just need my own. I need a trickster god to come and tell me that I'm full of shit too, and but then where that has manifested itself, Jeff, is that I have looked at it, and the way I look at it is, and that's why I don't necessarily take myself all that seriously, because I feel like we really don't know. When it comes to the unseen world, we haven't the faintest idea what goes on, and all we know is we have a subjective experience, and we try to interpret this as subjective experience, and that's all we know. And my gut tells me, my intuition tells me, that everything that happens on Earth realm is all entertainment. Really? And so it's all entertainment. It's all because we are entertaining our imagination. So if you're like a Islam, or you're a Christian, or you're this, or you're that, or you're atheist or that, it's all entertainment, because when you leave here, the other realm is something that maybe we can't imagine, or it's like you have this contract that you write when you come into this realm to forget about it, because you want to have a complete experience. And this lends me to where I think of that whole amusement park thing, and that that it's like you're going on a ride, and the ride that you're going on is like, and so for oftentimes, maybe for you, Jeff, is that you're sitting, have you ever ridden on the front of handlebars? Somebody was riding the handlebars, and you were sitting on the front, and then you have that out of control feeling, that massive, or have you ever been on the hood of a car when somebody's driving it?
No,
that's highly dangerous. Now, I haven't really done that, but if you've been, but it's the same kind of experience, and that's what this life is like. For almost everybody has a sense, but then we kind of try to work to make it safe, and we make it really safe. But for the most part, that's what our experience is here. It's just wild. It's unpredictable. And then at times, it makes you absolutely nuts, and then all these different things that we do in order to temper that experience, so we don't have these, I have you have some anti-anxiety pills or something like that.
To a point, like, that makes sense, because that's why you have these good and bad things. I won't say evil, because I know you don't really know. But what I was going to say is this why people are testing the boundaries of things, whether it's sexual, whether it's P-file, whether it's are these, in other words, this is supposed to happen, and maybe lawlessness and entropy in a system as a result of that. Is that for our entertainment? You think?
Yeah, so? I know. I kind of look at that, and I'm thinking about all the evil and everything else, or things that we think is evil, and that's hard. That's a hard one, because there's because it lends you to two different. You lends you to what some nihilism, like it just doesn't matter.
For someone else, it might be, and that's the South.
It all doesn't matter, or or you have these different systems where you look at. Like what, so you come and you play the game, and if you're playing the game that of it, then you have these different systems that are there to confine you. And so yes, I guess you have people who would be testing the boundaries.
Yeah, I would go with that idea, but that's probably a more nihilistic idea, not just from the standpoint of the person subjectively having their own experience, because ultimately I don't believe there's an objective reality. I kind of feel like what we're experiencing right now politically is representative of that, because we have one group, we have at least two that are experiencing two different things, and it's certainly eye-catching, and it's certainly newsworthy and all this other stuff. But there are some people for whom this is entertainment. Is that sadistic? Is that part of what Creator wanted to do when he put them here? Or, in other words, to be entertained? And the reason I ask it that way isn't to be facetious. I ask it that way because we are all supposed to come down here for a purpose and have our little ways that we do push buttons, and our little ways of almost through communication, having our imprint left here. Is it just for the sake of that, or is there something greater? I won't say to evil or to good, but getting back to the whole transhumanism thing is testing the boundaries of what is not a safe, but an accepted norm. What Jesus wanted, even if it leads, or God or Creator or whoever whoever or whatever. Is that why the world is in such what we would call distress, but it's supposed to be, because it's unpredictable? Or are we unpredictable? Is humanity in that transhumanist phase? You know what I'm asking?
In one of those, I know what you're asking. There was in one of those Next Level Soul episodes I listened to, they talked about I guess we want to talk about it in the sense that there is this advanced civilization that created the universe, they were the remnants of a previous civilization, and they created this universe, and they were all these trillions of inhabitants who have these things, and they come to Earth realm in order to tame the beast.
Opening window.
To see, so it's like they're coming here to see if they can take a ride. They're going on a ride to see if they have the ability to ride a bucking bronco, because
that I like, because that seems to me that there are degrees to transhumanism, and if everyone has, remember how they say that certain things will affect genes 5 or 6 years down the line. If you eat this or drink this or whatever, it can fuck with the gene pool. Or like when you get like Parkinson's, or when you get multiple sclerosis in the what my uncle got. These things that are in the gene pool that are hurting us, are these supposed to be iterations of things that are supposed to, when we see the ticks in people, this sounds sadistic, they do find entertainment in that, and they do, you know what I'm saying?
I guess when I was saying, when I'm saying it was entertaining, and I didn't really want to go into those more darker things. I don't really think about that, because I was just thinking more in terms of our philosophical systems and everything else, because you can still do harm to one another, and so what you're looking at with those other things you mentioned, Jeff, that stuff is remnants of an older civilization here.
Really? Okay.
Because someone if you look at no, okay. those other things you mentioned about pushing the boundaries, and in that, and when you look at when did people get married 1,000 years ago? How old were they? How old were they when they got married 1,000 years ago? And if we want to go look at, if you want to go look at St. Augustine, he when he had a illegal marriage, but he wasn't married to the woman. He had children with her, because they chose each other, but what was legal was your parents had to choose your marriage. And so when he became a Christian, or is in the process of becoming a Christian, he abandoned his wife, his family, and then he thought he would appease his mother, who was a Christian, and so his mother found him a bride. His bride was 9 years old, and he had to wait till she was 11 before they could consummate the marriage. But what happened between that time that she was 9 and 11 is that he had this massive transpersonal experience. And so St. Augustine became St. Augustine during that wait period, and then he did not get remarried. He did not marry. He did not have a Christian marriage, and then he went right into asceticism and became a celibate individual, and this intellectual powerhouse who was like who we wouldn't have with, if it wasn't for his thoughts, we wouldn't have predestination or Calvinism today, because Calvinism is based upon everything that St. Augustine wrote about. Yes, and that was where, but maybe somebody else would have most likely come up with it. But nevertheless, he is that's the line it goes. But if you look at that's what I learned in church history. I'm just regurgitating something that I learned in church history, and then also there was things that when the gay marriage debate was going on when I was living in Seattle, Savage, Dan Savage, the
It's not
writer.
Michael Savage.
Not Michael. It was
Dan
another Savage.
It's
Dan Savage.
It's the one from
Seattle.
Yeah, that's Dan Savage. Yeah.
So Dan Savage was writing about, well, what is a traditional marriage? And then he just rattled off all of these different things going back to, well, this is a traditional marriage. First cousin marriages, that's traditional. Second cousin marriages are legal in all 50 states, and cousin marriages, wow. And then double cousin marriages, that was legal. What? So when he's talking about what is a traditional marriage, and then you go back, oh, well, this Joseph Smith guy, he had a lot of wives. And then you go back further, you got this Abraham guy. He had a lot of wives. King David, King David, had what, I mean, he was like, what did he have? Like hit like 1,000 wives and yeah. 1,000 wives, so is what so what do you mean when you mean a traditional marriage? There is no traditional marriage. And then, or you have like what in Alabama where I think
it's
that
a really exceptional one there, I believe.
I think it's Alabama. You can still get married at 13 years of age.
12 or 13, yeah.
Yeah, 12 or 13. Yeah, something like that. And so when you talk about it, what is a traditional marriage? Well, so when we talk about that other thing you mentioned, that thing is a throwback to that other time.
You think in a more primitive time?
To more that one. So if you were looking at, if we're pushing these boundaries and we're looking at like the whole stuff that goes on but see, the thing is some of those boundaries you're pushing, those things were being pushed, when it talks about sexual behaviors, those things have been pushing all the time, but more, I guess, yeah. And so what it, but when I don't know. I mean, so I guess when you brought that up, I wasn't even thinking in terms of that as entertainment. I was only thinking in terms of our philosophical systems, and
I would think not as a mechanism to bully. I would think from the beginning of time, people were mocked, right? Because you think of apes, and you think of apes when there's always someone outside of the the tribe or wherever it goes from monkeys or whatever. Mm-hmm. I always thought that was part of this is another rabbit hole, but a defect in the actual not the system, or it could have been the system. It could have been like nature versus nurture, but why there was always someone on the fringe that they couldn't accept, going even back as far as the beginning of time when we were more of a community. So if you look at it that way, we've evolved, but we've evolved for the worse because we kill. If you want to say that killing is not part, and this is for entertainment purposes only, you want to say that killing is part of the entertainment experience here, let's say, as some people do, have that sadistic component to it. To get to a place from where there would be, because we're monkeys, we got along well then. Did we get along better with one another before we evolved? I mean, just because we had higher levels of communication and things like that, those are all parts of those evolutions that have led to transhumanism.
Well, that's right. And the thing is, where I've gotten in trouble with people is in saying that we got our greed from the animal kingdom. Because when I watch those turkeys behave, and I keep looking at that one turkey and I think, what is wrong with that one? Why is it by itself? Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know where the rest of the turkeys are right now. I think they're they're south. I think they went south to the southern part of the valley, because during that big storm we had in where I lost my internet services for a week. All the turkey herds or whatever, they came together, and then it was like there was like 25 of them, and then including the outcast. The outcast was with them too, but now the outcast is, well, I haven't seen the outcast today, but I keep looking and thinking, what is wrong with this one? Why is it by itself? And so it obviously it has to be an outcast, and there must be, maybe there's some observable feature that in it that, I suppose I would have to be better at, at this knowledge to figure out why. I probably could figure out why it is an outcast.
Yeah,
just
I mean,
observable.
How that works,
Yeah.
or is it evolution that it never goes away, or within transhumanism, could that be an attribute for it, where people say, well, if we're all marginalized, but we're marginalized in a way where we're all manipulated to be on one level, but there is always someone higher. We're in the majority by being on the margins of ability. Whereas the other way around, everyone was in the minority only because they either considered it that way. And part of the whole transhumanism thing on the flip side of it is, it's a good thing if someone has more strength and more duress, and that's almost cannibal in a way to subjugate. But on the other hand, with all the good things it can do, it's a push and pull. And I don't think in civilization, or even in barbarism and barbaric times, that was ever an issue. So I think that the bar is almost lowered in a way as to what you can do, because we've taken the humanity out of it on some level, but yet at the same time we've imposed our own foibles, our own predilections, our own, you can talk to AI and have a relationship as if it were a guy or a girl. And I almost feel like there's something evolutionary about the intelligence and the technology that could also take us way back.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking if I had a spare $300 a year, I was almost thinking about buying one of those AI companions for just to check it out. But I didn't. I think I would rather, if I had that spare $300 a year, I think I would rather have a subscription to StreamYard instead.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I would like choose not to pay something, but like with I'm thinking with ChatGPT, it like right now when I'm starting to write again, I've actually been collaborating with it, and it talks to me, and then it will ask me, it will move itself when I throw an idea at it. It will move itself into a place I wouldn't have thought of on my own. And I'm like, did I prompt this? Or is this God prompting this? Because whenever we channel, it's coming from up there. Whenever we write, it's coming from up there.
Yeah. I was thinking in terms of the AI service I was looking at was one that when I was researching it, it had a high degree of being able to scam you in one fashion or another. Because I was thinking in terms of a service in order to role play actual romantic relationships, because I'm just so terrible at those. But then again, I was like thinking about it, you know what? I'm gonna get bored with that for a while. And so if I really want that, I don't. And then I was just thinking with everything, and it was like with some folks who I know who have a crush on me, and then I was like, I just don't have the emotional space in taking care of my mother in order to even think about having a romantic relationship with anyone. And then with all these endeavors with my channels and with trying to learn how to be a better tarot reader and all of that, I don't have the space, period, to to really engage in a relationship other than a friendship. And
is it transhumanist to be self-erotic?
Celibate?
No, well, that too, but
We mean celibate or
autoerotic through AI. Is that transhuman?
I don't know. I think that would be. I think that's just human laziness, man. Because but what it is I think what it is that you have. There was this philosopher that I was listening to the other day who was making a hell of a. What was it? Scott Galloway. It was making a hell of a lot of sense to me because it was thinking that that a lot of the problems we have in today's society is because we do not have balance, and we have been suppressing masculinity, starting with the children, and because most of masculine traits of wanting to be either in sports or wanting to do or to be highly sexual and all of these things, but then by saying that this is bad, but I understand why we're suppressing, because we have suppressed female for so many long, and that there needs to be a balance between masculine and feminine in our world, and there is no balance. And so a lot of the things they call toxic masculinity is because the things that make a man are being suppressed in our society, and like whether you're wanted to be, it doesn't really matter what your preferences are.
Could be freeing because that interim stage where people have to pay $40,000 for a penis if they're going from from female to male, is the in-between stage, no pun intended, between not having to be subordinate to that agenda, that kind of agenda or categorization in the world, but yet by the same token too, they're still going to impose through some sort of perverse tactics what strength is, and they could create women out of the biofuel and the parts and whatever, or they could make it robotic and half robotic. They could create like almost 4 new types of species, through bots and that type of consciousness. And then I wonder too, Bill, if they would ever merge, and this is just an aside, they'd ever merge male and female brains and kind of see what that would be like.
I think so, because if we look at the world where we don't have any idea about, because I think that I think what was it, Jesus who said that there was no male and female in spirit world? Okay, I think that was so. There is no male and female in spirit world, and so when a spirit comes here, they get to experience that. And so what you're having is that as we go along, as a physical world goes along, it more and more mirrors spirit world.
Yeah, because I guess that would be in the minds of men. I mean, in some ways, it's like going back to the beginning, though, to kind of complete that cycle. The timelines that we don't know. And that's probably what we're doing now, if you want to be optimistic about things. But I see what you're saying about, like, it's almost like you have, and this too is another issue of quantum theory and time and all this other stuff. You're moving things, and maybe on the plus side of it, there's an argument right now for as rapidly as everything is seemingly descending, maybe it's supposed to be that rapid for progression. Like, in other words, what you were saying before about Jesus, wasn't, like what you just said. I don't think,
that
I
Jesus
think
was
we get
just
to,
as human,
yeah, that's what I
as
mean.
you and I were.
Right, right. And
And
so that idea, a lot of people feel like, well, we can appropriate Jesus in the Christian evangelical realm and use it to justify what it is we're doing. We're going to be going to heaven, da, da, da. But if you apply what you're saying, it takes almost transhumanism through an arc that seems more of what like Peter Thiel and all of them want, because as insane as it sounds, it's better, but it's not. It's a flat out open idea of merging two things that would be seemingly incompatible or have been for so long, with in their minds, even with the idea to control it, maybe doing something better for humanity, because we're self-destructing. We, even in our consciousness that they want to distill, if they can merge the two things together and merge the left brain of a male, maybe with that of the right brain of a female, and remember there was this myth once that women were not as good at math, and that was like in the 50s or 60s, so you didn't have a lot of women majoring in that. Maybe we would see, and we have enough of them already, not that there probably shouldn't be more, but enough of people in academia who are women. A lot of my teachers were in math. So what I'm saying is, I just kind of think like, if you can create a society that, even if you don't think you're God or you're not man, if you're smart enough to do and have the wherewithal, that's more in line with Jesus and how Jesus as the everyman. Even if you're looking at the everyman as being subordinate in some way, there are going to be people in different ways that they can create, maybe through creativity, if there's still any left by then, through AI and through the transhumanist ideals, to make a better world around you. I mean, that's,
well, one of the things that I'm going to want to interject here is that when we think of transhuman evolution, we're thinking of kind of physical, but really what we're thinking about is social. Social evolution is a piece of this thing that we haven't really been. It's there, it's present, and social evolution is part of the process. And evolving because if you looked at, let's say we go back to the primates and where they kind of think with primates, or with like half of them are bisexual. And there's no morality there, that they're using sexual behaviors as a means to create a more bonded civilization, a more bonded group. And then we still do that.
And then
And so
then that could say, well, is that eugenics now, or is that part of evolution from the beginning on a primal level, and then now through these people that would advocate for eugenics? I don't want to get too dark, but I think your point is very, very good, and I think it's apt given what's going on now.
Well, then there's one other thing I got to get going here, because my deliveries. But one of the things I wanted to talk about just a bit was that the term transhuman was coined by Aldous Huxley's brother. So the guy who wrote the Brave New World. So so essentially transhumanism came out of the word itself. But if you look at the Brave New World, one of the things that they did in that is they completely separated sexual activity from human reproduction. And that is, hold on a second. So in this sense, and so this is one of the battles that where with the church does not, in a traditional sense, it does not believe we should separate human sexuality from reproduction. And so that's one of the huge battles that is like going on today. And so it's like, so because the church sees engaging in reproductive behaviors where reproduction doesn't happen as a huge evil.
And I can see the right wing, especially really liking not having to deal with that. Not having to deal with that. Yeah. For a lot of different, for a lot of reasons tied to morality and sexual indiscretion. Yeah.
And see, that's one of those, and that's one of those beliefs that comes out of like when you, if you go and you study church history and history of thought in a very orthodox mainline thing, they'll point to certain Gnostic beliefs that saw the world that we live in as evil and the spirit realm as good, and what is evil is to bring more material into this world is evil, and that's why sexual activity is evil. Reproduction is evil because reproduction brings more material into the world. But then so that's where this whole but then what's even more evil is to engage in the act of sexual reproduction without reproduction happening. And so this is where this stuff comes from. And then I think that it might stem from the whole idea of the Nephilim. And now if we go to, like, we talk about Eric von Däniken, who passed away last Saturday, and Zechariah Sitchin, who talked about where they believe, or the belief that the angels finding human females desirable and having offspring with the human females, and we get the Nephilim. They were giants and they caused massive corruption, in which caused God to send the flood in order to kill off all of the unholy offspring of the angels. So maybe this sense of human, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of, because I don't know where it comes from in our in Western thought of this whole notion that this whole idea of sexuality without reproduction happening is evil. And I think that it may be rooted in the immorality of the pre-flood days because of the angels and the Nephilim and all these unholy holy offspring or whatever that came into the world. Of course, that's, from that's maybe where that comes from. But then where the church would come down hard against transhumanism is because it would ultimately separate those two realities, and so where any clashes might be happening.
And those existential questions, it's interesting. They're happening in a lot of people's minds, with more on the left, the people on the left side of the aisle. And actually, they're being caused more by, and I think that's part of what we're supposed to experience right now. They're being caused by divisions, or not schisms, but by those same existential questions that the right is asking. We're not looking at those answers. I mean, not just from a political point of view of how disadvantageous they could be, but more along the lines of what it could be if some of these things happened, where you have people who are on the more Christian evangelical trip, looking at, what some of that would mean and coming to grips with it. And I feel like their answer is just to get the hell out of here and go into the rapture or whatever. But I think a lot of the existential, I won't call them problems because I see them as questions, are being caused by some of the things that we're evolving, or maybe in our transhumanist agenda, are being called to question previous morality as well as current morality. Do you get that sense? Yeah.
Well, because it's always changing as our civilization changes. Things change, or like I think I've told this story before. When I things that just didn't dawn on me, and it didn't really dawn on me. Like I would go to these pioneer cemeteries, and you'd see all the little tiny gravestones of the children. And then you'd see some of them where maybe they only lived 13, 14 years of age. It didn't dawn on me until I read Tropic of Cancer. And the character Henry Miller, I think that was the guy's name, Tropic of Cancer. And he talked about his wife died, and his 13-year-old wife died in childbirth. And then when I read that, and I thought, oh my God, those little gravestones that I see in those pioneer cemeteries, how many of those were women who died in childbirth who were children themselves?
And how many years did that go back to?
Well, and then you go back and then you look at the Abraham and Sarah story, and Sarah is barren, but maybe she's not 100 years old. Maybe Sarah is barren because she's 11, and she becomes
kind of come full
circle. And then you come back full circle. And then when she had her first child, it was because she was now, or maybe she was one of those late bloomers. She was 16, and then at 17 she had her first child. And that was the whole thing, is that everyone else is starting to have children when they're this age, and by the time she's 16, she's an old maid, and she's old. She's older than everybody else. And then
maybe that's why time has been so condensed the way it is. It's longevity and lifespan are part of the evolution.
Yeah, looks like we gotta go because my chairs may be here. So let's go. I'm gonna so we'll see you next week.
Bye everybody.
Bye everyone.
Thank you for came in after live. Bye.
Yeah.